So how's your day so far, Duane?
It was all right. It was it's okay. I dropped my daughter off at kindergarten and she was not happy. So, that part is always hard to deal with. There just seems to be you get cocky because like there's a week where it's like she does not care. She just sort of runs into class, like barely get a wave goodbye, and then all of a sudden she gets upset again. So dealing with that, dealing with the book coming out, and Sean the artist sent me a photo of some books arriving at stores and stuff, so that's exciting. And I'm headed actually to Fan Expo in Toronto tomorrow to hang out with Sean because Shauna is going to be there. I wasn't supposed to be there or anything, but so I'm just going to show up. I'm just going to show up and have some fun.
That's awesome. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
So before I start asking you too many questions about a better place, I wanted you to kind of give a short rundown for listeners or viewers who are unfamiliar with this book. If you could kind of just give a little rundown pitch on that so that people know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, the basic plot pitch is about a young imaginative boy who gets told that his grandfather has gone to a better place. We as adults know what that means. He does not, and so because of this, he puts on the costume of his favorite sidekick superhero, and he goes out on a journey to find where this magical better place is because he wants to be with his grandfather again.
So before you wrote this, did you start your entertainment career as an actor, or did you always want to be a writer before you started doing that?
It's that's a good question, and it makes me have to go back a long way. When I was a kid, I was always writing, um, and I wrote a short story that got published in this anthology book when I was 6, and that was happening. But then I don't know. All of a sudden, I started being on the improv team in high school and doing school plays, and I ended up going in that direction. I was going between film school and theater school, and because I was making films as well in high school off with an old offline editing machine and like old beta recorders. And I picked theater school because film school cost a lot of money. And I knew you had to make your own films, and that cost a lot of money. And I didn't grow up with a lot of money, so and I fell in love with acting, to be honest. I got asked to when I was doing an improv show. I was asked to do this musical tour, and I did it and fell in love with acting and decided to study that instead. And I'm glad I did because it informed my storytelling overall.
A-
Um,
And I think your daughter has less than a year if she wants to beat you in the age of publishing her first short story and an
Yeah, exactly.
anthology.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, we were watching the Paw Patrol movie, oddly enough, and she started pointing out plot holes. She's 4. And she was like, Dada, if Ryder went in the building there, how did this? And I was so proud of her because you're pointing out plot holes at 4 years old. So I'm hoping, she's gonna get that gene, the writing gene.
It sounds like she gets the creativity and she's pointing out certain things that'll make her a better writer than some of the
Yeah.
ones we have today.
Yeah. Maybe she'll just be a hardcore editor. Maybe she'll be my editor and just really,
There
really,
you go. There you go.
exactly.
That'll be your superhero team up.
Yeah,
She'll be
exactly.
she'll be the editor kid.
Yeah.
So the I liked what really stood out to me were that some of the panels were colored,
Yep.
while some weren't.
Yep.
Can you speak to exactly? I mean, I think I kind of have an idea of why, but can you kind of break down why you chose to do that?
You know what, the real answer isn't very exciting or creative or romantic. The real reason was I was initially I was going to print this myself. I was going to self-publish it, and I knew that printing black and white was cheaper, and I'm I'm not even kidding. But I still wanted touches of red. Like I didn't originally think of as much color as is in the book now. I just wanted little bits of red here and there. But then in my research, I found out that even if you do spots of red, you have to print the whole book in color anyway. And so I thought, okay, let's break it wide open. And that's when it became more of a creative decision. And it had to do with his fantasy life and the things that brought him joy and where his imagination went, represented the color of the book. Obviously, when he's reading the comics, those comics are in color and they inform his imagination and life. So anything in his imagination is color, and anything in the comics is color. And then at the end of the book, that I don't want to spoil, we sort of bring a little bit of that color back in when a certain thing happens.
So I really like how you had mentioned that your storytelling is informed by your past and your acting experience. But I was curious if any of this specific storytelling was inspired by or informed by your relationship as a parent with your daughter.
Yeah, that came after, because this took me so long. The whole germination of this story and its final, what it resulted in this book, was over 20 years. Yeah, long time. So it wasn't at the forefront of my mind that whole time, or I'm writing a word a day or anything like that, but it sort of came in and out of existence until the last couple of years, where I finally decided, no, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this way. And so the ending was informed by my daughter and the decision to always want to tell her the truth, no matter how hard it is. That wasn't always in the book, and that's sort of the only part that led into the writing of the book that was informed by my relationship with my daughter. The rest of it, though, parts of it are from my childhood, and my mother being a single mom who worked a lot and who wasn't around much, and my grandfather had Alzheimer's, and so he started to forget who I was. And I recall also the first person I knew who had died was my grandmother, and she was the first person I saw in a casket. And I remember seeing her and thinking, that's not her. Like, I know she's there and that's her, but there was just something about her that dawned on me, that's not her. She's gone somewhere else, because it's not like she's not sleeping. I knew what that was, and that was a completely different thing too. So I just got it into my very young mind at the time that she has gone somewhere else. So those are the major things that influenced my personal journey in this story, for sure. That was informed by my past.
So I can relate to that super heavy. I mean, when I was young, I had a really close relationship with my grandparents and my grandpa, because we were living together, and he also got Alzheimer's when I was
Right.
young.
Oh,
And I remember
it's
going to the
devastating.
hospital.
It's devastating.
I remember going to the hospital and exactly what you said. Like, I saw him, and he hadn't passed yet, but I saw him, and even though his body was there, I could tell that he had already gone to a better place. So definitely I can understand that hits home. So
Yeah.
I think that will hit home for a lot of people. The first time this is being published is the beginning of November, correct?
No, it's coming out next week.
Oh, next week. I'm sorry.
Yeah, next week, the 26th. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's even better.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, dates have been so messed up because of all the shipping and the supply chain stuff. But yeah, so it's next week.
okay, awesome. So have there been any like readings or anything that you have done to reveal certain parts of this to audiences, or is this something that's going to be fresh for everybody?
I hope it's fresh for everybody. I've done a couple talks here and there, but I haven't revealed too much. And there's been some little preview bits that put out there to sort of entice people. But it's still pretty much mostly under wraps. That's why I don't reveal too much. I mean, there's the main. I think when people talk of a better place, a lot of people understand what that means. So no, this is sort of unleashing it into the world very soon, and I'm really excited to see how it affects people, but in whatever way it does, because, and this isn't a how to deal with grief book. It's not anything like that. It's just simply a story that I told about the process of grief that I hope resonates with people, and yeah, makes people feel things.
So the hero versions of
Hmm.
the Dylan and his grandfather. It's Dylan, right?
Yes, Dylan. Yeah.
So the hero versions of Dylan and his grandfather are Kid Cosmo and Red Rocket. Is that what it is?
Yes. Yes.
How did you land on those names?
They sounded golden agey and public domainy to me. They sounded, I wanted them, I definitely wanted a hero sidekick, because I wanted the progression of sidekick becoming hero. Like, because I'm telling a coming of age story, I wanted to parallel the sidekick becoming the hero. You know, it's not quite Robin into Nightwing, but it's that sort of idea of these heroes grow up as well, and what happens with them, and just wanting to sort of do a little bit of that taking over the mantle of the hero. And so I started looking at golden age names and tweaked them, and just started playing around with it. And I wanted red to be a theme throughout, and I wanted space to be to be what it was, because I knew I went to Catholic school, and early on we're taught heaven is up. It's up there, it's in the sky. And so I knew I wanted to parallel going as high as you could to try to find that better place. So yeah, I ended up just creating these two heroes that were inspired when I was a kid. One of my first introductions into comics was going to my grandfather's cottage, and my uncle's comic collection from when he was a teenager was under one of the beds. And I hated going to the cottage because there was nothing to do. So all I used to do was drag out that box of comics and read through them. And I still have a long box that has a couple of them in it still. They're all moldy and not worth anything, but they meant so much to me at the time. And so yeah, that's what all that is from, is that thing. And what I did do with my grandfather, different than this, but my grandfather was very into wrestling, to the point where I think I truly believe he thought it was real. And so he would do moves with me. Like, we would practice moves, and I was a kid, so he could just throw me around, and we would pretend that we were a tag team, and we were going to go take on, Big John Studd and whoever, his tag team partner was at the time. So that's where that bled into the comic as well. Although my grandfather and I didn't pretend to be comic heroes, we did pretend to be a tag team.
Well, there's definitely a huge parallel there with wrestling and superheroes.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, even on our comic book movie website, there's an offshoot called the Ring Report, where we cover wrestling, because I feel like the fan base of one kind of leads to the other. There's this theatrical, it's acting, but maybe kids don't know it's acting. And it is, these characters with these, like I said, theatrical costumes. So that's definitely, I can totally see that connection there. I mean, especially when you have comics and the wrestling with your grandpa. I think that's a really cool way to incorporate that.
Yeah, and I mean, I grew up in the early 80s, right? When Hulk Hogan's Rocket Wrestling was the thing. That's what, when Saturday Night's Main Event, that's when wrestling, I think, really started to flourish in terms of the characterization. And it was also still in that age of, like, even amongst the general public, not just kids, like, is this real? Like, because when someone calls out Jerry Lawler for saying it's fake, he slaps him across the face. Like, it's so they were still clinging to that idea that maybe this is real. And then the Undertaker comes along and it's over. But before that, I think there was a lot of people that still held on to the fact that this might be real.
So I wanted to know, what is there about A Better Place that you feel like people haven't asked you, or nobody's touched on, that you really want as a message to reach people, or to reach readers, whether they have already or haven't read the book?
I think the biggest thing is, and it's really interesting, and it's not that I want someone to ask me it, but what I want and hope that is realized as people read it, was that I didn't write this for a young audience. I originally wrote this for me, like for me and people my age, as a bit of nostalgia, and looking back on when we were kids and coming up, and for people who grew up with single parents and as only children, because I was an only child as well. So friends were not always easy to come by for me. So I would escape into these worlds. And so I wrote it from that point of view. And then when Top Shelf came on board and decided to publish it, they had talked about it as a YA book, which I had not have ever even thought of. But as they mentioned it, it made sense to me. and so I see it now actually primarily as a YA book, but I hope it doesn't lose that ability to reach adults, because that was my original intention. It was just a book. It wasn't targeted as an audience. If anything, like I said, people my age. And so I hope that's retained. I hope that, you know, in the editing, when going to publishing, there were some tweaks to the story and to the book to gear it more towards a young audience, since that seemed like the most natural place for it to go. But I still think it's something adults will get a lot out of. And so I hope it retains that audience. And if I want someone to know something about a better place, it's that I think adults can get the same amount of a joy and feeling out of it as a child would, and perhaps even a different version of it. It's why I like the mom character so much. I think there's a really inner struggle with her character and trying to raise her child to one way while saying another. Like, I want you to grow up. Oh, but death isn't real, you know? And I think a lot of single parents like my mother struggled with that, and balancing family and career as a single mom. So I hope there is identification there for everybody, really.
And you made the point to mention that, you know, you made this primarily, you made the story for you. You wrote the story for you.
Yeah.
But so I'm curious now that it's getting, you know, it is reaching people and it is about to be, you know, available for even more people. Are you becoming more emotional with it? Is it getting like what is the process in your head mentally and emotionally? Like, are you ready? Have you prepared yourself for this?
No,
Or
I always think I'm past it, because the process has been so long, and because of COVID, it really delayed the original release for it. And so the entire process of the book coming out into the world has taken so long that parts of me felt like I was actually past it, like that it already felt, just telling everyone it was going to be published and things like that seemed to be the peak. And because it took so long, I thought I was over it. And then yesterday I had some of the comps arrive, some of my advanced copies, and I opened the box up and I got so emotional. So the actual release is bringing up a whole other bunch of emotion, and it's a thing, because there is really personal things, though it's not autobiographical or anything. There are some personal things to this book. So once it's out there and people are reading it, you just hope that people like it, because there's a piece of me in it. So it's now that it's actually coming out, it's bringing back a lot of feelings about it all. And yeah, we'll see how it goes.
it's gonna be a roller coaster.
I may be in the corner too, over there hiding in a couple days. We'll see how that goes.
Laura, I'll save you some room. So before I wrap, do you have any other things that you would like to plug? Any other projects you have coming out, or is your entire everything all your energy put into this book? Because I know you also act and
yeah, well, I was gonna say I wish it were, but oddly enough, I'm acting right now in a TV miniseries called Megantic, and I'm shooting it in Montreal. And I don't know if people everywhere are aware of this, but Megantic was one of the biggest rail disasters in the history of Canada. It wiped out an entire town, and 47 people were killed. Because a train rolled backwards and took a corner, and it was filled with oil tankers, and they exploded and just blew up the town. And so I'm shooting that right now. I don't know when it's coming out. So that's actually where most of my focus has been. Yeah, so there's that. And if people read this book and like my writing, just last year I released a movie called Red Rover that I wrote and produced. Yeah, it's out there to watch too, called Red Rover, with Kara G from The Expanse and Christian Brune from Orphan Black are the two leads. And it's similar tone as this book is. I write, I like to think I write with just heart and feels, and with a little bit of humor thrown in. And yeah, I think that's the stuff.
So when I was doing just, one of the last things I wanted to mention is I remember, now that you're talking about acting, is when I was looking at your IMDb page, I saw that you were in a project, Impulse, and
Yes.
that is a, I don't want to say superhero, but that is, I mean, it has a comic book premise
Yeah,
essentially.
absolutely. Yeah.
Do you think that, acting in that helped you kind of wrapped up everything with this book, or did you already finish doing your comic at that point?
I don't, you know what? I don't remember now. I probably finished the story, but it was still being drawn and I was tweaking it. And I am always just excited to be in anything like that. I wish I were in more fun supernatural things, especially something like Impulse. I don't know if you saw it, but it went really deep, a little deeper than most superhero stuff that I see. And it was one of the favorite roles I ever played, because I got to be a bit of a hermit conspiracy theorist, and it was really fun. I really had a great time on that. And yeah, I'm always open to doing more of that stuff, and I hope I get to, because yeah, I love that stuff.
Yeah, I haven't seen the show, but I do want to check it out. When I was
It's
when
good.
I didn't hear about it until I was reading about it after your IMDb, and I was looking at the cast, and I was looking at
Yeah.
everything, and I was like, this is interesting.
It is, and it was really well received. The problem was it was a YouTube show, and no one really thinks of YouTube as having shows, but it was the one they sort of put all their resources into. The lead, Maddie Hansen, is fantastic, and yeah, I recommend it. It's really really good, and I was really happy to be a part of it.
So we'll have readers and listeners. We'll have them check that out. Check out the book. Is there anything else, like website wise, social media, that you would like to point your audience to?
I'm terrible at social media. So if I point everybody at it, they'll just be horribly disappointed. But it is just my name. It's at Duane Murray is my Twitter. And I occasionally just throw, stuff I'm doing up there. But I'm not like one of these guys who can put like witty memes up there every 2 hours. I'm just not very good at that. But that is where I, say stuff that I'm in or that I'm doing. And I am working on my next comic project as we speak, and it's going to be it's going to be more of something that's going to, I hope to do, is individual issues that later gets collected. um and I'm really excited. I really love doing this. It's a different experience in acting or writing for movies, and I'm kind of in love with it, and so I hope to keep doing it.
Awesome. That's awesome, and I loved your answers. I had a great time talking with you.
Me too,
So I
man.
really
Thanks.
appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely, anytime.